Thanks, Josh, and thanks everybody for coming out today. It's a big day for Alberta and our resource sector. It's a big day for them too, and so I'm going to get right into it. It's important. When I became Minister of Energy and Minerals last year, part of the mandate I was given was to improve and modernize our energy policies to ensure that Alberta and Albertans remain globally competitive. Today, I'm here to share my ministry's plans for the long overdue modernization of Alberta's coal policy with the launch of the Coal Industry Modernization Initiative. We're bringing coal development in Alberta from the 19th century to the 21st century. This action addresses the 2021 Coal Policy Committee's recommendations to build a long-term legislative and regulatory framework to guide responsible coal development across our great province. And it builds on the 1976 coal development policy that was designed to protect the foothills while encouraging responsible mineral development. Although the need for an updated coal policy has been evident for at least a decade, previous governments have kicked the can down the road on this issue consistently, relying on temporary fixes, band-aid cures, and regulatory half measures as successive governments failed to modernize our coal policy. I'm proud to serve under a Premier who has declared that the time has come to address these issues for Albertans. Alberta deserves a modern policy that balances strong environmental protections with responsible resource development. Our job will be to develop a policy that will attract investment and create jobs while respecting and protecting the air, land, water, and wildlife that all Albertans hold dear. More than 30,000 Albertans from all walks of life and areas right across the province, Indigenous and Métis people, municipalities and industry stakeholders, they all voice their concern on coal and coal policy through the work of the Coal Policy Committee. We've also heard concerns through the comprehensive direct consultations with Indigenous communities that underpins both the work that the Coal Policy Committee did to formulate its recommendations and the ongoing work with Minister Schulz and her ministry that they're doing on regional land use planning for the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan. We heard you, Albertans. We have seen your posts on social media. We have read your letters and we have listened to your phone messages. Concerned Albertans are not the only ones saying our coal rules need to be modernized. We've heard it from the coal companies too. They've told us Alberta has fallen behind other jurisdictions and that we can do better. And we are. Protecting our water will be our top priority in the development of all our new coal policy. If coal mining is allowed, it will only be allowed to the highest possible standards. Alberta's new standards for coal mining will be among the best in the world and the best in Canada. We will be working with the AER to conduct targeted engagement with the coal industry stakeholders to start the Modernize initiative. These sessions will allow industry to share their best practices that are in use in other jurisdictions right around the world and to allow us to give industry a heads up on coming policy changes. Work will be done quickly with the goal of having a new coal policy ready by this time next year. Our work may include amendments to the Coal Conservation Act, the Mines and Minerals Act, and other associated regulations, rules, and directives to achieve what we need to on the desired outcomes. Amendments will be focused on royalty rates, standards and techniques for coal mining, regulatory certainty for investors, and most of all, building confidence among Albertans that our air, land, water, and wildlife will not be sacrificed. That's the big message that I want everyone to hear today. Let me expand that message a bit. We're going to consult with industry on how to get things done, but we are not consulting on what will and will not be allowed. We are not handing over the keys for unlimited coal development in Alberta's precious natural spaces. We will not put our water at risk in any way. Protecting our waters will be a top priority when considering new mining projects. The foothills are the headwaters for most of southern Alberta, and these waters will be protected. Any existing or new coal project in the foothills will need to prevent additional selenium leaching into our waters. This can be done. Industry knows how to do it, and we will make sure industry does whatever is necessary to keep selenium out of our water. We will protect the foothills. We are not allowing mountaintop removal mining, not ever. We will not allow any new open-pit coal mines in the foothills. Let me repeat. No new open-pit coal mines in the foothills. To anyone using images of open-pit mines in other countries or devastated mountains in West Virginia, for instance, in their advertising, those mining practices are not on the table for discussion in Alberta's foothills. Why coal? Well, allow me to anticipate some of your first questions. Yes, Alberta has stopped burning coal to generate electricity. That was thermal coal. And aside from a few very specific agricultural issues, thermal coal is no longer used in Alberta. What we're talking about here is mostly metallurgical coal, which is absolutely vital for the world for steelmaking. Yes, and vital for Albertans. Our metallurgical coal is needed worldwide to make steel for millions of end users. The European Union has actually declared steelmaking coal a critical raw material needed for the energy transition. For many developing or expanding countries, steel will be an essential component for infrastructure, and Alberta's metallurgical coal, some of the best in the world, could help meet those demands. Given the current and anticipated future global demand for coal, particularly from Asian markets, maintaining opportunities for responsible coal development of the coal resources is important to Alberta, and being an example to the world on how to do it is also important. Ensuring opportunities for steelmaking coal exploration and development will boost and diversify our economy and create many jobs for Albertans. Steel made with Alberta metallurgical coal will return to our province in the form of building materials, home appliances, cars and trucks and farm equipment, and yes, even solar panels and wind turbines. The majority of coal rights in the foothills are owned by the Alberta Crown. Any new development of Crown-owned coal would generate royalty revenue for Albertans. As part of this coal modernization initiative, we will be substantially increasing coal royalties. There are also some coal rights that are privately owned or freehold. Responsible coal development will result in increased investment and jobs for Albertans, while respecting the existing property rights of landowners who have freehold title to the coal on their land. Freehold coal rights have existed in Alberta longer than Alberta has been a province. The government cannot expropriate freehold coal rights without paying fair compensation to the owners of those property rights. And I'll be bold right now and answer another possible question that I think you have. Why are we doing this now? Well, we've had the Coal Policy Committee report and recommendations for a few years now. There have been several factors that have led to the delay of the launch of the Alberta Coal Industry Modernization Initiative. You may remember COVID. It was one. It caused tremendous upheaval for everyone. There was also an election where Albertans picked a new premier, and Alberta has been engaged in an all-hands-on-deck effort to defend our right to manage our own resources from federal overreach. You've seen Minister Schulz and myself be part of that effort, along with the premier. But our premier also wanted us to solve this issue that's so important to so many Albertans. We've heard loud and clear that Albertans are concerned about the environmental impacts of coal development. You want to protect the foothills, and we must protect the water. You're concerned about where coal development takes place in Alberta, about the regulatory approvals, about oversight and enforcement for coal exploration, development, and reclamation. You're concerned about the provincial and local economic and community impacts of coal mining, but overwhelmingly, we have heard from you that our coal policies need to be modernized, to be strengthened and environmentally focused. We've heard you. Clear and practical regulations have always played an important part in Alberta's economic advantage. I'm proud to lead a ministry which supervises our world-class development of responsible energy, and we will also supervise the world-class development of responsible mineral development. Our Coal Industry Modernization Initiative will deliver a modern policy that protects our environment, drives investment in our province, and ensures Albertans are treated fairly by the resource industry. We're taking a whole government approach to this issue, and we will do the hard work that previous governments have avoided and deliver a modern coal policy that balances strong environmental protections with responsible energy resource development. We will do all of that while making sure that we protect the foothills and protect our water. Thank you. I'd like to ask Minister Schulz to make some comments, please. Minister Schulz.
Thank you very much, Minister Jean, and for all of you for being here this morning. Protecting and sustainably stewarding Alberta's environment is our government's top priority. We can absolutely create jobs where they're desperately needed and, of course, sustainably manage and protect our environment at the same time, but only if we rely on science and data and facts. That is what this initiative is all about. Our province has one of the best environmental management systems in the entire world. Strong and effective monitoring and regulatory protections are in place across our province. These safeguards will remain firmly in place while the Coal Modernization Initiative is underway. No changes are being made to our environmental system or the protections that my department has in place. In fact, the Coal Industry Modernization Initiative builds on the work that has already been done by my department. As we speak, there are folks rigorously monitoring over 100 rivers, lakes, and groundwater sites throughout the province. This includes almost 60 sites in the South Saskatchewan and Red Deer River basins alone. We continue to test for selenium and other contaminants under every single surface water quality framework, and we are funding researchers who are studying lakes and rivers to identify ways for industry to improve. All of this work will continue 24 hours a day to keep protecting Alberta's water. Our regulatory system will also remain firmly in place. The AER is responsible for upholding Alberta's environmental standards for air, land, and water throughout the life of every project, and I expect that every single rule and regulation will continue to be followed. Absolutely no exceptions. We have said from the very beginning that coal policy must be embedded in land use plans as well, which are developed in close consultation with people living and working in the area so that they too can absolutely have their say. Our province has one of the best and most comprehensive land use planning systems in the world. It has never been faster or more focused on what Albertans want to see happen right here in our province. Public input on the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan's 10-year review just closed, and we expect to start engaging on the Upper Smoky Regional Plan in the new year. We will continue to work with all Albertans, including Indigenous peoples, to help create and adapt our land use plans, and this will include providing clear direction about where coal should and should not occur. Albertans have been clear about what they want: protection for the environment, for the foothills, and for our water, and responsible development where it can most safely occur. This initiative will make our strong environmental system even stronger, keeping our safeguards in place while modernizing our approach to coal to the benefit of all Albertans. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the formal part of today's announcement. We will now go to questions from the media. We will start in the room, then go to the phone lines. I ask that you identify yourself and the outlet that you're from. We'll have a one question, one follow format. So we'll start in the room here.
Hi, Sarah Offen, Global News. So can you talk a little bit more? I want to ask specifically about some of the technology, I think, that has been referenced here in terms of the removal of selenium and preventing that leaching. You know, I have some suggestion that technology doesn't exist. Do you have examples of how that technology, or cases where it's been successfully used to remove that and to prevent it from going into the waterways completely? Well,
let's be clear. If it doesn't exist, it's not going to happen. But we do understand it does exist, and technologies come along every day. The technology we're talking about in particular is high wall mining, which is one of those technologies that catches the overburden. Selenium is caused, just like oil sands mining, when you turn overburden and you turn it upside down. And in the mountains, the selenium falls off the overburden and goes into the river system. We're not going to allow that to happen anymore. Just can't. And there are other technologies as well, if I can be very blunt. There's technologies that isolate and contain and do surface mining and other technologies. We're not going to allow open pit mining in the foothills anymore. That's one of the biggest issues, because foothills are not only pristine, but we understand and recognize that technologies do not exist where open pit mines do not cause the tremendous damage they do, and they do not just before, but during reclamation as well, and we're just not going to allow that to happen. There are other technologies. Underground technology is the most obvious, but let's face it, metallurgical coal is used by the world. It's needed by the world, and in Alberta we have a lot of the best coal in the world, and we can mine that considering the environment and considering all of those long-term impacts, and make sure we do a better job than anywhere else. We do it with our oil sector, we do it with our gas sector, so we can do it with our coal sector.
I appreciate your preemptive answer to the question on timing. It is the Friday before the Christmas holiday, however. Why is this being announced now, considering this has been such a controversial topic for Albertans?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, a lot of work has been done up to today. So the coal policy framework, Minister Schulz and myself have been speaking about this. I have regularly scheduled meetings on coal policy, and I have since my mandate started on this. This is a file that we've continuously pushed forward because we want to create certainty. The certainty we want to create is not just for industry. Let's be clear. There's been a lot of misunderstandings out there. The certainty we want to create is for Albertans, letting them know that we're moving forward to protect what they want us to protect and make sure we do so in a balanced way without sacrificing the environment. So we've been pushing forward in this file a lot. We've been trying to get it to this point, but we want to make sure we do proper consultation. And we're here before the Christmas break. There's a lot of things happening today. There's a lot of things happening right now, but you may have noticed that this Premier has a very ambitious agenda. And when we have something ready to push forward, we put it out, and that's what we've done here.
May I also just add? Just to add as well, it's good timing in terms of alignment with our engagements on the South Saskatchewan regional plans, that we can take the work that's been done by Energy and Minerals and Minister Jean's team and embed that into what we're working on in terms of reviews and updates and edits and further engagement on that plan. And then just to reiterate what Minister Jean said in terms of water quality and testing, we have such a significant and comprehensive system for testing and sampling water across the province. I would say that there are two aspects here. One is technology and one is technique. And through the work that Minister Jean has done, we're addressing both. We as government, we set the standard. We set the benchmark for essentially what we're able to find in our water, what levels are acceptable, what levels are not. Those are based on science and research. In fact, over the last couple of years, since the work of the coal policy review, my department, researchers within my department have worked on, I believe they've released 5 out of 6 papers on the science in terms of what we're seeing down in southern Alberta specifically and in the water. And this policy will address those concerns from both a technology and a technique perspective while protecting our eastern slopes, our mountains, and our water.
All right, next question, please.
Thank you. Alicia Fieldberg with CTV News. Thank you for taking my questions. Minister Jean, you wrote an op-ed in 2021 criticizing then Premier Kenney. Some of those statements you made there were the royalties Albertans get from coal are minuscule. I'm not convinced that the small net benefits we get from any new open pit coal mines will be worth the price of wearing another environmental target, and same to that tune. What has changed now that, this is part of your team?
Well, first of all, we're going to manage it properly. Let's just say some of the things that have happened in the past years have not been in the best interest of Albertans. But as I reflected in my notes, I'm also going to deal with the royalty rates. You're right. The amount of royalty rates for Albertans on the basis of what coal is taken out is minuscule compared to what's going on in the rest of the world. So we're going to modernize that and bring it up to a place where it's realistic and competitive. That will change everything. So will the fact that we make sure we maintain the environment. We protect our waterways, protect our foothills. We've been very clear there's not going to be any more open pit mines in the foothills. That's a big statement. That's a big day for, I think, a lot of people in southern Alberta. We're going to do it right. What was happening before was wrong.
Second question is, obviously we know coal has been big in the world for a long time, the Industrial Revolution, for instance. You said metallurgical coal is essential, but I understand about 30% of the world's steel is made using recycled steel and a process using natural gas, also a product that Alberta wants to tout. So why is it that, we're going towards this old use of coal and not towards the more modern shift towards natural gas and going back to the coal idea instead of moving forward with other energy that Alberta is trying to promote?
Well, first of all, you can't recycle steel unless you have steel to recycle, and you have to make new steel in order to do the 70%. I'm very excited about recycled steel. You may notice that a lot of steel goes up to northern Alberta, and that's opportunity for recyclement, and it does actually happen. It gets transported to other countries, I understand, right now and gets recycled. I'd like to see it done here, and I'd like to see it done by natural gas. There's no question there's opportunities there to do so, but the world needs metallurgical steel. As I mentioned, Europe has identified it as a critical element that's necessary on the transition moving forward. Other jurisdictions have said the same thing. Canada is not I believe at this stage doing what it could be doing on metallurgical coal, and if we do it right, we can actually be the example to the rest of the world. Let's look at the oil sands, for instance. We do that better than anybody else on the planet. We do more monitoring. We make sure that we take care of any environmental situation. We can do this with coal as well. We can do this with other development. Other sectors of the world, other jurisdictions are copying exactly what we're doing in the oil sands. I don't blame them because we do it better than anybody else. They're going to do the same thing with coal. We're going to modernize it. We're going to bring it up to a level that people can be proud of it. They're not right now, but they will be.
Mike Saddington, CBC. How will this affect the Grassy Mine proposal?
Well, the Grassy mine proposal, of course, was an exempt mine going forward, but there are absolutely no exceptions in relation to selenium and the effect and the long ongoing scenario of selenium. And the AER is, of course, an arm's length independent regulator, and we're going to make sure that they will be dealing with all of the new mine applications as well as the existing ones and hold them to the highest possible standard. And of course, the water they're using right now is from a contained pond, a tailings pond. So.
All right, we'll go to the phones. Operator, please put through the first caller.
First question comes from Graney at Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Yeah, g'day, Minister Jean. This one is to you. You keep saying that you will not allow open-pit coal mining, but that's quite disingenuous given the fact that this will not apply to, for example, Grassy Mountain or any other exempt project, which will be open-pit coal mining. And I know you're saying no new open-pit, but when you're saying no open-pit mining, and this doesn't apply to Grassy Mountain, how do you expect Albertans to actually look at this and say, yeah, no, that's a fair go, let's go for it?
Well, Emma, I appreciate the question. I hope they look at us and say, wow, that's smart. What a smart government, because they're actually looking at something that wasn't reclaimed properly. They're going to require the company to reclaim it properly, and at the same time, they're going to be able to do it economically and not cause any environmental problems. I think it's a great solution, and we have to look around the province for other opportunities. There's a lot of brownfields, a lot of contamination, and a lot of contaminated sites left by previous governments, including the federal government, and we need to find innovative ways to clean those up, and we're going to. Grassy Mountain is no exception to that. We're going to be very, very closely monitoring this and dealing with the AER to make sure that this is done in the most responsible way possible without affecting the people's lives and the environment in a negative way.
I mean, you kind of spun that answer there, Minister, with all due respect. I did say that, this does not apply to open-pit mining when it comes to Grassy Mountain. So it's disingenuous for you to say there will not be open-pit mining, when in fact there could well be, given what happens with Grassy Mountain. But on the royalty part of this, you talked about a substantial increase. Are we talking there about what Albertans might get from oil and gas, for example, or how high are you kind of picturing that might go?
Well, first of all, Emma, I said no new open-pit mines, so I'm not disingenuous. There's certain contractual relationships we have to continue to honor, but we're going to honor those at the same time, make sure we keep the environment clean and people's lives safe. Our number one priority is going to be water and people and wildlife, and we're going to make sure that those things are protected no matter what the case is. As far as royalties go, as a person that's been in business for a long time, very seldom do I have people come to me and say, listen, you're charging us too little. Well, I've had at least 3 coal miners tell me over the last number of years that the rates in Alberta are just too low. Well, they're too low. We're going to bring them up. I don't know what that number is going to be yet because we have to consult with industry and we have to make sure we're competitive across the world. But right now we are not competitive and we have to bring that rate up so that Albertans recognize that if we're going to allow this to happen, that they get a true benefit from this, a benefit that provides schools and hospitals and roads. I believe right now there's one coal mine in Alberta that's brought in about $200 million over the last few years. Those dollars pay for the essential needs of Albertans. And we're going to make sure that whatever takes place, if it does take place, if they are at the highest standard possible, that there is a value to Albertans for that.
All right, Operator, we have time for one more call. Operator, please put through the next reporter.
Next question comes from James Snell at Western Standard. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. James of the Western Standard. Minister Schulz, selenium is a pretty big problem in the Elk Valley. How would this be avoided, potentially in the Crow's Nest, when there would be tailings if the Grassy Mountain mine goes ahead?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so as I alluded to in my last response, I do want to point out that when these concerns began being raised, our department did begin a series of research papers, essentially, on selenium and water quality in southern Alberta. Through that process, and I believe 5 of those 6 papers are already published and available. We can also send you the link. Absolutely, my press secretary can do that for you. But we are taking the learnings around reclamation or incomplete reclamation, the reclamation that we saw back in the 1970s, as Minister Jean alluded to, did contribute to increased selenium levels in the water. And so what we are announcing today is that essentially with the no new open pit mountaintop coal mining, as well as relying on significant technology and technical advancements to uphold our water quality, we can do this better than before. Those learnings around selenium and how we can keep water safe are absolutely what is driving this new policy.
And your follow, James?
And yeah, just one follow-up, if I may. So will you guarantee that there won't be a selenium problem if Grassy Mountain goes ahead?
Here's what I would say. Our job in the Department of Environment is to set the environmental standards. The AER is then the arm's length regulator who ensures that any and all companies, no matter where they are in the province of Alberta, but especially so in southern Alberta, where water and these types of concerns have been raised, that they are adhering to those high standards. If they are not, obviously the AER as the regulator has a number of levers to ensure that they are either brought into compliance or they are not operating in the province of Alberta.
If I can also say, James, great question as usual. Recognize Elk Valley is a situation where BC has allowed a large number of mines along the river, and they haven't contained the overburden, and the selenium has gone into the water. Grassy Mountain's different. They've got an old tailings pond that they're going to clean up at the same time. They're going to use that water. It's a containment, self-contained scenario. So the AER has to look at that, but one of the main issues is the geography of the situation. Are we going to allow multiple mines within a one river valley? No, we're not. Are we going to make sure that if anything is allowed in such a geography that they have a plan to contain the selenium first? Absolutely. We're not going to do what BC did. We're not going to do what the NDP allowed there. And we're going to make sure that we are an example to the world of what we can do, and we can do it better. Thanks, James.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And this concludes today's press conference.